today I'm going to mention something I meant to mention last week, but instead I felt a need to talk about Tyree Nichols and his beautiful life. But my husband, who is today in Memphis with family, I lost a coach and a teacher in their community that he had when he was a kid, and he's just been talking to me about this guy. And I was going to talk about him last week, but instead I'm going to bring him up this week, even though Joe's in Memphis somewhere. But also, point of privilege, I can see my mom there. My dad did come home after a month away, being in the hospital and skilled nursing and a little home care thing, and he said he's at 92, just really feels like he's a new man, and he's just so thankful for all the cards. And they're down there in Texas. Of course, everybody's had that big ice event, and so it delayed his homecoming a little bit, but we're thankful for that and appreciate just all, again, the small ways people reach out to one another. I know Jennifer said with her father's death and his illness, that's meant so much. So we really appreciate and treasure people's care for one another. It's really what keeps us going. So last week we started the bit about the Sermon on the Mount. This is kind of the epiphany part that will take us into Lent. And in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is really the teacher, right? Luke has a shorter Sermon on the Plain, but Matthew starts off, and it could just be called Instructions on the Mount instead of Sermon on the Mount in a way, because it's sort of like the best of Jesus. If you went home after this and you pulled your Bible out and you read chapters 5 through 8, a whole lot of it is really familiar, right? It's turning the other cheek, it's seek and you shall find. It's if you're coming to the altar and you realize you've got a beef with your brother or somebody, you drop your gift, you go do it. You don't pray out in the public where everybody can see you. It's got the Lord's Prayer in there. It's got, sharing your coat. It's just kind of like the best of Jesus, right? The essential Jesus. And last week we heard a little bit of that. We heard the very beginning where Jesus kind of shares these blessings. And then this morning, kind of chapters 5 verses 13 through 20, again, very familiar words. And Jesus said, and he's speaking to the disciples as well as the crowd that has gathered around him, which includes, we've just been told, kind of the afflicted and the sick. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden. No one, after lighting the lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Creator in heaven. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. And a friend of mine kind of likens this to, if you buy a beautiful jacket and then you put your arm in the sleeve and how it fills it out, that's kind of what we're called to do, is kind of inhabit and embody the law. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, and sometimes we can have that anti-Semitism kind of creep in where we're like, the scribes and the Pharisees, but Jesus is lifting up these very faithful ones here. Unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees who were righteous, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.